Whether you believe that Death Note is a complex masterpiece between classics or an edgy pile of garbage only good for its potato chip memes, neither of us can deny its undisputed popularity. The very same could be said for what is arguably its most popular character. L was socially awkward, eccentric, a connoisseur of candy, and the world's greatest detective. He was once so popular that anime cons had to put up signs asking people nicely to stop cosplaying him because things were getting out of hand. He was the best part in a show with many best parts, and the final third was all the proof anyone needed that nothing and nobody could ever replace him. So I was thinking about exactly how inherently tragic his death was. To this day, I still get caught in a moment of brief emptiness once he falls over. It's a moment that has never really drawn tears from me, because it's just not that kind of sadness. It's a moment of inevitability and abruptness, where impressions, thoughts and feelings collide. It's earnest in its realistic obduracy. L had died. One of the innately cool things about L is how scarce the show can be when it comes to giving us any concise information about him. We get hints and fragments here and there, but the puzzle is still for us to solve. Much like other character studies, like say the main cast of Cowboy Bebop, we get to know L through his actions and behaviors, not his past achievements. This is his last story, so to say. We all get to know him as a weirdo, an antithesis to the everyday norm, constantly analyzing his surroundings due to his high intellect and grand paranoia of missing, well, anything. Oh, and he is incredibly childish as well.
Well, I'm also childish and I hate to lose. That's how I know.
When talking about L, I think it is important to understand that Death Note is actually not a story about him trying to solve the mystery of who Kira is. It's about L trying to find evidence to support what he already believes he knows, which is that Light Yagami is Kira. You see, from the very first time L noticed Light, he was like, yup, that's him, I fucking know it. In spite of Light having relatively bad odds of being Kira, as pointed out by L himself throughout the beginning of the show, L then constantly puts himself in danger and consistently tries to taunt Light. You can see how early on L decides to devote all of his time to Light, in spite of the fact that there are multiple suspects at hand. It's never really revealed what exactly made L so certain that Light was Kira. My interpretation is that L is in a way designed to recognize the behavior of people, or more specifically, killers. The second he lays eyes on Light the first time is when he sees the way that Light carries himself, how he perfectly appears innocent, and L cannot help to think that there is no doubt in this world, this situation, this game, this guy probably is Kira. And L decides to stick to that notion for the remainder of the show. He simply sees things that others can't, but he needs proof. But why is that? It is shown to us throughout the show that L commands a considerable amount of resources and power. If he is so certain that Light is Kira, why doesn't he just have Watari snipe Light from a rooftop? It could be done with no major consequences, and Kira would be gone forever with countless of lives saved. Well, there are two reasons for this. The first one is rather thematic. It's the fact that if L uses his authority to kill off Light without proof, then he would literally and figuratively become Kira. He would be doing the exact same thing as Kira, as in declaring death upon someone he doesn't think should be alive. This aligns well with one of Death Note's main themes, which is that justice is determined by the victor.
If Kira gets caught, then that makes him evil. But if he wins and rules the world, then I guess he's justice. Kira. I will hunt you down wherever you're hiding, and I will eliminate you. I am justice.
Human relationships are not exactly something L is accustomed with.
What's wrong? You've been staring at me for the last 2 minutes. Wait, let me guess. You must be annoyed because I'm the only one eating cake at the moment, am I right?
No, that's not it.
Here.
He never had any real friends, as expressed to Light multiple times. This innately has something to do with how people has treated him his entire life, as no one has ever viewed him as just a regular person, so to speak. He was an orphan, found and picked by Watari to live at the Wami's house due to his special gifts. At a very early age, he began working on cases as a professional detective, and he quickly became famously known as the world's greatest. Everyone in the show approaches him and talks to and about him like he is some kind of unreachable deity. I would presume that the only person he's ever truly had some kind of close relationship with is Watari. We don't actually know if Watari acted as a father around L, but I think it is fair to presume that L may have naturally placed Watari in the father figure role regardless, which only makes the way he reacts to Watari's death that much more heartbreaking.
Watari?
In other words, he has never really had anybody treating him as just a person. And this brings us to Light. Upon meeting Light, L quickly realized that this was a person who he could be friends with. As a matter of fact, his first real friend. L kept expressing how he saw parts of himself in Light, and Light treated L as an equal and even goofed around with him. However, this only made their situation that much more tragic. You see, L has never really gotten to understand what exactly friendship is, and now when he's actually found someone who he could consider a real friend, every fiber of his being is telling him that this guy is the very mass murderer that he is searching for. This is that second reason I mentioned earlier for why L doesn't just get Light killed. As much as L has a strong sense of justice, which he does, and as much as he wants Kira to be stopped, he cannot deny that playing this game of deception and trickery with Light is fun to him, like a couple of buddies playing chess. I do think L realizes that he is in too deep and too personal, which is presumably one of the reasons why he acts so ashamed in the famous episode 25. What's even more tragic is the fact that this notion is very much one-sided. As much as Light respects L, and there is no doubt about that, he is too narcissistic and without a conscience to not snap L's neck the first chance he gets, and L knows this. He also knows that if he had met Light before Kira, then there might have been a friendship there, but as things stand right now, they're playing a game that is bound to end soon. This is where I need to repeat myself and remind you guys that Death Note is about L searching for proof for Light being Kira, because that is why, in spite of how much evidence is thrown in front of L to make Light appear innocent, he never botches. Never once did L think to himself, oh, I guess all this evidence means that I'm wrong, but instead he thought, what could Light have done to make himself look innocent in this instance? In episode 25, Light appears to once and for all be cleared of all suspicion, and just when you think that even L is convinced, he cryptically goes,
Tell me, Light, from the moment you were born, has there ever been a point where you've actually told the truth?
as if to tauntingly tell Light that yup, he knows what's going on, he just can't prove it, and thus the game is over. But we will get to that great scene in just a minute. In terms of our chess metaphor, it would be as if the game isn't quite over yet, but they both know that there is no escaping Light's checkmate. The 25th episode shows us the final moments of L before his passing. It is melancholic, still, and slowly building towards the inevitable outcome. The episode is appropriately entitled Silence. There is a tangible, dreadful atmosphere, and we're constantly reminded of the fact that L is just waiting for Light to strike. Just look at these shots after L casually asks Light why he doesn't just leave the headquarters now that he has been cleared of all charges. I also love this shot that shows Light acting as if he is surprised to hear about the new killings, and you can just tell that L is having none of it. We then get to one of the strongest moments of the series where Light approaches L on a raining rooftop. L toys a bit with him and then begins talking about how he can hear the sound of bells and how they have been more noisy than usual today. He cryptically asks,
Really? You can't hear it? It's been ringing non-stop all day. I find it very distracting. I wonder if it's a church, maybe a wedding, or perhaps
It's a bit on the nose, but this is all the proof we need that El knows that he has lost. He knows that Light is Kira, he just can't prove it. He's going to get killed by the first person he's ever found a genuine connection with. He tries to taunt Light one last time, but Light easily brushes it off. I think it is when he asks Light if he has ever once spoken the truth that we get the biggest look into why El has always suspected him. I mentioned earlier how I think that El is pretty much designed to recognize tendencies of a killer, and I think that asking Light if he has ever spoken the truth, he is hinting at Light's narcissistic and sociopathic tendencies, which he has recognized all along and which nobody else seems to do. After they have both dried off, we move along to our final meeting ground. El knows that the new killings are done by Misa, and he also knows that by putting her in danger, he's going to draw the wrath of Rem, a god of death. But he attempts nonetheless, and then it happens. The following scene is pretty much perfect. The fall of Vatari, the flickering lights, and the sheer panic of the moment. The collision of the two soundtracks' semblance of dualism and Domine Kira. The lightning strikes, signifying light literally striking down on El, and then finally, that one moment of complete desolation. He falls over, caught and embraced by his own killer. This is not just tragic, it's Shakespearean. In spite of how theatrical this death is, it actually feels very real. Most of the time, death comes ruthlessly inconvenient and leaves nothing but grief, and nothing less is really the case here. El doesn't die leaving something behind, he doesn't appear in flashbacks later on, and it's not suddenly revealed that he had a brain tumor all along and was dying anyway. No, El was a person who didn't want to die, but even more importantly, he was a character who we did not want to see die, which is what made the death that much more impactful. That day the bells stopped ringing. Death Note is one of the most popular anime of all time, and the reasons behind that varies depending on who you ask. I'm not here to tell you that it is a masterpiece that you have misunderstood all of this time, but then again, I would like to point out that if all you remember about the series are potato chip memes and plot twists, then you might want to try watching it again, because as great as those are, then there is a truly earnest tragedy beneath. As I've already said, it's fucking Shakespearean.